I will remove from stage. Okay, Ron, and then I will.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome to the first session of the data track. We are in the DevOps Pro event online. This is 2 days of online talks, and we will continue with 2 days of live sessions at Vilnius, Lithuania. Sorry, I'm probably pronouncing it even bad for a Lithuanian person. My name is Francisco Piccolini. I work for Open Nebula Systems, and I will be your host for today data session track. So here we are. The first session will be delivered by Ron Ekins. Ron is the principal architect and database practice lead for databases at Pure Storage. He has more than 30 years of experience, but probably he doesn't like to say that he's a little bit old. No, it's not old. You will see him on stage. He's a lot of experience and expertise. He has 5 US patents filed around data security and governance. So welcome, Ron, stage. Welcome. We will be having your session today about security. So I will leave you with the slides, and the floor is yours. Can you hear me, Ron? Hello? Ron? I think that we lost you. Hello, hello.
Good morning. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Okay. Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning. Welcome to this session, Protecting Oracle Databases and Backups from Ransomware and Malicious Intent. So that's me, Ron Ekins, Director of Field Solution Architecture for EMEA and LATAM for Pure Storage, as Francisco introduced. Easy email address if you want to get hold of me, ron@purestorage.com. I use Twitter a lot, so at Ron Ekins if you want to follow me there. I have a technology themed blog, ronekins.com. It's one of the top 50 Oracle blogs globally. So whenever I do a presentation, whenever I go to a conference, I like to write about it and share code examples on my blog. And all the code examples that I use throughout my demonstration, throughout my presentations, I upload at my GitHub repository. Below that picture of me, there is my Oracle ACE Director logo. So I'm one of only 70 Oracle ACE Directors globally. So the ACE program is a community program, recognition program by Oracle. 600 ACEs globally, 3 tiers, Associate, Professional, and ACE Director. And as I say, there's only 70 ACE Directors, so I'm very proud of that. So looking forward to speaking to you. So today's agenda, what is malware and ransomware? Let's get some terminology out there. So as Francesco said, I've been working in defense and security for the whole of my career, working in aerospace and defense industries and finance. So what we've done and what we always continue to do is think defense in depth, and we'll just talk about that briefly. And then the meat of the presentation, how we can protect our data from ransomware and malicious intent. And then finally, maybe what else we can do. So what are malware and ransomware? So malware, and this is a definition by the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK. Malware is malicious software which, if able to run, can cause harm in many ways, including, and there's a list there. And the ones we're going to be talking about today are the ones in orange: stealing, deleting, or encrypting data. But it's not just limited to that. So when we talk of malware, it could be using your devices against you. It could be consuming services which you're paying for those. So maybe doing Bitcoin mining on your platform, or using your machines to attack another organization for industrial espionage. So that's malware. But what about ransomware? So ransomware is a form of malware. So it's about blocking access to your computer and the data that's stored on it. So this could be stealing the data, deleting the data, encrypting the data. It's holding your data as a hostage. So in the same way we have ransom for people, we can have ransom for data. So you pay us to get access to your data, or if you don't pay us, we will share your data with other people. It's becoming more and more well known, and for a long time, WannaCry was an example of a ransomware malware attack, but there are many others now. There is a confusion that it's actually very complex. Well, it's not. Many people can establish a ransomware as a service. There are ransomware as a service kits available. You only need minimal IT knowledge to be able to use those. So you go to a site where the ransom kit provider gives you the tools to create your payload. So you pay for this service. Typically they take 20% as the author, and then you take 80% of the money, but you take 100% of the risk. So depending on the complexity and the sophistication of the solution, there will be different pay rises. But as you can see on the right-hand side, the online builder there, you have a number of prompts, and then you can create your payload and then distribute it. All organizations now are targets for ransomware attacks. And we can see this in public forums like Deutsche Bahn train tables there being attacked, or in the news. So we like to think it's just big organizations, maybe airlines here, Bangkok Airlines, or a school. You think, why would anyone attack a school? Or every company, every organization, whether that be commercial, public, has data. All data is available for attack. All industries are vulnerable. Hotels. Here we have an example of MGM Studios. MGM casinos being attacked last year. I was in Vegas at the time. They was unable to check anyone in hotels during this period. They ended up paying the money because they were losing business. The trouble is, if you pay a ransomware fee, you end up paying again and again. So that's really attacking the production server. But hackers are no longer just limiting themselves to the production data. They're also hunting for your backups. And they spend many days on your network looking for the production database and test databases, backups, before looking at encrypting the production database. You know that people's recovery mechanism is to go for the backups in the event of a disaster. Then the first thing that hackers do is destroy your backups. And they're getting better at it. So back in 2011, this is the first time it was recorded, the term dwell time, how long a hacker's on your platform before they attack. It was a long time. It took them a long time to navigate the organization, navigate all directory shares, file systems, where backups are, to map that organization. Roll forward 10 years down to 24 days, a lot more automation, 22, 21 days. And last year, the research is saying that they're getting this done in a day, less than a day. The volume of attacks are increasing, and the sophistication of the attacks are increasing. Every time we think we fixed it, the ransomware guys find a way around it. A lot of innovation there, because it's a very financially rewarding piece of work. So we need to make sure our backups are there to protect us. If your data is encrypted, your backups are your last line of defense. Or it's the pay and pray, and pay again and again and again. So what can we do? So we need to think defense in depth. Data security, application security, and I like to think of security as an onion. So we start on the outside with our policies and procedures. Then we look at our physical security, network security, host security, application security. And at the heart of the solution has to be our data. So when we start on the outside, think of awareness. So our policies start with our employees and our contractors. Make sure they're trained. Make sure you know who you're hiring. Physical security, what cameras do you have there? What gates? The physical security controlling your site. And that was good in the physical world. And that's when we was only on one site. But with more and more people working remotely, we need to think about network security. And not just working from home, working in a coffee shop, working on a plane. I'm not sure if it's just me, but if I'm sitting on a plane, I have no interest in the person's work they're working on. But my eyes will always cast over to their spreadsheet that they're working on or the Word document that they may be typing. It's human nature. We just look. Same as way we may be interested in what film they're watching on the plane. So we need to think about where we're working and how we're looking after data, what we're presenting. Then we look at our host security inside our company, harden our servers. So when we make about hardened servers, only use required services. If you don't need the service, disable it. Don't advertise more information than you need to. So if you have a banner message, you may have a security banner message there that you need to include, but maybe you don't want to broadcast the version of the operating system or the release version, because that gives someone that's trying to hack your server information they can use. Application security. It's great protecting the server, but if your application hasn't been fully patched and if you're not maintaining those, then the easiest way to your data is through the application. So we need to make sure that we're working with our application providers to ensure that they're secure and they're protecting the data. And then when you get to data security, know where your data is. Not just your production data, but when you take that production data and you create development clones, are they masked or are they the same set of data? When we do a backup, do we know where that backup goes? Is it on another set of disks, another file system, on a tape, in the cloud? Who has access to it? So we need to understand the full life cycle of our data. Use software tools, solutions like SIEM to capture logs and analyze it, look for unusual patterns. So this is part of that picture. So when we think about our database, what can we do? How can we protect our database from human error, malware, or malicious intent? So from an Oracle database point of view, we can actually use Oracle to help us. So Oracle ASM works on block storage. So it's harder for malware and intruder to discover block storage. If you're not using a file system, it's harder to navigate. Most malware solutions look to encrypt a file system. So if you're using a raw system, well, it's a little bit harder. Not impossible. It's just maybe if you're only onto a platform for a day before you get detected, you're going to go for the easy solution. So maybe you realize it's an Oracle database running on Oracle ASM and move on. Oracle will give us another option. Using Oracle ASM, we can use the filter driver. So this gives us another level of control. It limits access to just the disks to just the Oracle database processes. So a root user, so if your platform's been compromised, they can't get to the data either. They can't look at these volumes. So we can use some of the software and some of the tools that the database vendors provide. Here's an example of the ASM filter driver. So I'm listing the devices. I have ASM filter enabled. I try to write to those blocks to encrypt it, and it gets denied. So this is functionality we have today that you can use to protect your Oracle database. And there I can see that the block is fine. Another line of defense is using DataGuard. When we think of databases, we think of a data center, we think of DataGuard maintaining a standby copy, typically in our DR site. So maybe our primary data center gets compromised, but our secondary data center hasn't been compromised, our DR site. So in this respect, because we're not using file-based replication, we're using a redo stream, maybe our standby database is okay because we're not replicating encrypted files. But it may be fine. It may not be fine. We wouldn't want to guarantee that that's not going to be compromised, because if our primary data site is being compromised, maybe the virus, maybe the malware, maybe the intruder has also got onto our DR site. So It's another line of defense, but it's not going to give us that peace of mind. So thinking about our primary database, we want to really use the features of our storage platforms. So use primary storage snapshots wherever possible. So most modern storage platforms have the ability to take storage snapshots. These provide instant point-in-time recoveries. They're read-only, immutable snapshots. So we can use these to protect our database and applications and give us that point-in-time recovery. What I would say here is don't just take a snapshot of your data, include the application binaries and the environment it lives in. So we can roll back not just the data, but the application. What you don't want to do is find that you have some libraries that were compromised, and as soon as you roll your database back, the libraries kick in and then compromise the data again. So protect your environment with snapshots. Nothing's faster than a metadata operation, a pure metadata operation. We're not actually having to restore any data at this point. When we're using snapshots, we want to, wherever possible, automate. Take hands off keyboard, remove the human element of data protection. Use REST interfaces, programming language, whatever skills you have, whether that be Python, PowerShell, Java, Bash. Most modern applications, databases, and storage platforms support a REST interface. So automate these, automate the management, test it in development, test, production, and have the same configuration, the same way of working, have that consistency of operations. It gives us better protection and allows us to automate and know the outcomes of any deployments, any changes. Here's an example of how I've used to take a snapshot using PLSQL. So this is from inside an Oracle database. I can automate my storage platform to take a snapshot. So the code's available in my GitHub repository. I am creating a session on my storage platform from inside my database and then taking a snapshot. So I can do this before I do a database release, do an upgrade, maybe before I do a batch job or do anything which significantly I want to take a snapshot to protect it. So it could be at 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock at night, maybe every hour. So we can schedule snapshots or we could have these triggered by the completion of a job, all from inside the database. And here's my PLSQL code, my SQL plus code, execute FA snapshot, and then I'll give it a URL and a token. And if I go to my storage platform, I can see that's taken place. So that's looking at using snapshots to protect our production database. What about our backups? I said we need to protect our backups as well. So this could be from accidental deletion, from an Oracle RMAN policy or backup policy, depending on the backup tool you're using, which says expire my backups after a week. What if you've got that policy wrong? What if rather than saying 10 days, you said 1 day? And you come in the next morning, you find all your backups have been deleted because that's what you told it to. So it wasn't a deliberate act, it was just a human error. We can protect ourselves against that as well. So when I look at data security and data protection, I like to use the original concept of 3-2-1, but extend it with a plus. So 3-2-1. So think about your database living on primary storage, your database servers. So you need to be backing up to a different platform. So you can use NFS, S3, SMB, depending on the backup software and the database you're using. So you need a storage platform which can support those. So 3, create 1 primary backup and 2 copies of your data. So we have our primary copy, and then we have our backup, and then a secondary backup. So we have that approach. 2, save backups on 2 different media types. So I have my primary backup on my primary data on my primary storage platform. So this could be block, and my first backup on file on an NFS server. So I've got 2 different media types, block and file. It could be cloud, it could be S3. And then 1 offsite. So once I got it onto my backup device, I want to either replicate it to cloud or to another backup platform. Give me that offsite copy. And maybe what has changed over the last 15 years is the plus. We've always been able to do snapshots for a long time. We've been able to take backups and store those, but we haven't really tied those together. So now we think we want to do a production database, snapshot there. Backups, take snapshots there. They're immutable. But what happens if our storage platform gets compromised and someone has the credentials to delete snapshots. We now need to protect our snapshots as well. So use your storage platform to take snapshots and to replicate it, but also think what will happen if those storage platforms get compromised and someone can delete your snapshots. And that's the plus. We need to be thinking about how we protect that now. One thing I always said, it's all about the hardening the service. We want to make it as hard as possible. We want to put blockers in place. We want to delay the intruders. If it's automated software that's scanning our system, it won't be able to discover a hidden NFS mount point. So install AutoFS, create an auto mount file, and then start the service. So what this will do is it will only mount the file system when we're doing our backup. Once the backup's finished, the file system will unmount. So a casual intruder onto the platform wouldn't see the backups. Someone that has a bit of knowledge may, oh, look, there is a directory called mount or a backup. Maybe my backups are there. And they will CD there. They do an ls-l, see nothing, and then move on. So this may give us a level of protection. But when the backup runs, because it's tried to write to that directory and it knows that there was a subdirectory called demo in this screenshot here, it will mount the file system and suddenly my backup files appear and I can use those to write my backup. Once I've done my backup, I want to take that snapshot. So what I will do is automatically create a snapshot of my backups so that if there's a policy error, they won't get deleted. If there's a human error or a malicious intent, if someone CDs the directory where the backups are being created, I have my snapshot. So make sure you always have a read-only copy of your backups in the event of a disaster. Again, we can take a snapshot in whatever language you're using. So if you're confident in PowerShell, Java, Python, you can do that. If you use PLSQL, we can also take snapshots here. So here I'm taking a file-based snapshot. So again, signing on to my storage platform and then taking a snapshot. Once I've taken the snapshot, I can see this in the operating system. I can see the .snapshot directory, but I can't delete those files. So they're protected from that human error, that malware, that encryption. So that was in PLSQL, but also in Python. So now I have my .snapshot directory. What can I do with it? I need to do a recovery. Well, I could copy the files out of the .snapshot into my working directory, but with Oracle, we don't need to do that. We can actually increase our catalog, tell the Oracle RMAN catalog to use the snapshot directory. So catalog start with .snapshot directory, and that will import that into the catalog. Once it's imported into the catalog, we can validate the database. So before we ever do a restore, we should always maybe protect our production system because that may be better than what we're going back to. So take a snapshot on your primary site and then also validate the integrity of your backup before you do the restore, just in case there was some corruption there or it was incomplete or someone killed the backup during that backup you needed to use. So validate the backup. And then once it's validated, you can do a restore directly out of the .snapshot directory. For here, this example, taking it out of a NFS file system directly onto my Oracle ASM. But it also could be restoring from an S3 bucket. So protecting our data for backups. So talk to your storage platforms, admin, see if they have a way of protecting snapshots. So we want to have our NFS snapshots and we want our block storage snapshots protected. These could be from accidental or policy-based deletion. So many storage vendors now have the ability to lock the snapshots. So even if the storage platform got compromised, you could not delete the snapshots. They will be retained and you'd have to engage with the storage vendor to be able to get access to those to remove those. And this is that end-to-end process. So primary storage, backups appearing on a storage platform and replicate to another platform. And then safe mode snapshots enabled to make them immutable. I love this expression, a quote that I heard at a Polish Oracle user group. Schroeder's backups. The condition of any backup is unknown until the restore is tempted. A play on the Schroeder's cat experiment. So just because we take backups doesn't mean that we know that they're good. We don't know that they're going to work until we use them. So it's good practice to periodically test your backups. Do a restore so you understand how long they take to restore. Do a restore to make sure that they are complete and they are fit for purpose. And also do a restore to make sure that you have good knowledge of being able to repeat this. What we don't want to do is do this for the first time when we have to. So whether this is using backups to restore for development test environments or part of operational testing, make sure that it's documented and you have the skills to do this. So I guess this is the takeaway. Are you ready for a ransomware attack? What will happen if you got attacked this afternoon? Do you know how to support that conversation? Do you know the steps required? Do you know if you have to take your storage platform offline and give that to a government agency for them or the police to control access to that platform while the investigation's going on? What happens to your business during this time? Do you have a relationship with a vendor where you can ship in another storage platform while this is going on? How are you going to get your data back? What if your data is encrypted? There are lots of questions that have to be had within the IT and the business to decide what your strategy should be. But we need to be having those conversations so that we are prepared in the event of an attack. So it's not more if you are going to be attacked, it's more when. And when you're attacked, what will you do? Do you have service level agreements with the business? If not, what should they be? What is acceptable? If your system was down for a day, a week, would you still have a business? How long does a restore take? I've seen databases now, 500 terabytes. The biggest one I've been working on recently was 700 terabytes. A restore can take many weeks with traditional methods. So we need to think about how a business would survive that. Are there inter-system dependencies? If you restored your CRM system, would you also have to restore your ERP and your HR system? What about cloud-based solutions, SaaS services? What inter-system dependencies do they have? If you have a system which says, I've raised purchase orders, and you roll that one back and you have a separate system which does billing, and it says I've paid the order, or the order's already gone out and been sent to a supplier, maybe you've lost that order. You don't know it's been sent out and you're going to get an invoice because you rolled your system back. So we need to understand that. When we look at our operations, do we have run books? Are the procedures maintained? When we do operational changes at the infrastructure level, do we roll those into the playbooks? So peer review. Give your run books to someone that hasn't written the run book. A clean pair of eyes see different things. We are really good as humans. When we have a document, we read what we want to read. We put the steps in that are missing because we are familiar with those if we wrote that run book. Clean pair of eyes sees things. So peer review all your procedures and documents, your run books, to make sure they're complete. Finally, get someone else to test your process. If they are following the run book line by line, they will discover the issue. If you're doing it yourself, maybe you'll do a step because you're familiar with that step that the other person isn't. So wherever possible, peer review and get someone else to test. The best analogy I can think of when we think of our backups and data protection is that of a pilot. So a pilot doesn't work in isolation. There are a number of people in the cockpit. So the pilot and his second pilot. But also he has a cockpit companion. And this is a paper document which is maintained and provided by the airline. This lives in the plane, in the cockpit. Hopefully you'll never use this, but he has that run book available to him. But also, he has the control tower. He has advice that he can seek from the airline and from the plane manufacturer. So make sure you have those lines of communication. You know, you have that support contract with your infrastructure and storage vendors. You have the relationships inside your business. Who's going to give you the authority to do that database restore? How long will it take to get that decision made? So all of this needs to be understood. And then finally, you need to have this companion guide available to you. So document, simulate, and practice. Pilots are really good at going into a flight simulator and experiencing things that hopefully they'll never see in their career. As data professionals, how often do we simulate disasters and try and recover from them? Not very often. When we think of the ransomware protection and the malware attacks, we need to be simulating these disasters so that we can protect ourselves from them. Data protection needs a team. We need to think defense in depth. We need to harden from the outside in, engaging with our network teams, our physical security teams, our application teams, our database teams. Secure the data. We need to constantly be reviewing and challenging ourselves on operational ways of working. When we change infrastructure, does that change in our runbooks? New malware gives us new threats, so we need to keep up to date. Adopt that multi-layer approach. Snapshots, backups, immutable snapshots. Multi-layer gives our best chance of succeeding. And don't work in isolation. When you look at automation, Unix administrators, storage administrators, network administrators have been really good at automation. But what we haven't been good at is collaborating with teams. So develop a solution, develop automation, develop runbooks which span multiple teams. Application developers, SREs, DBAs, we all need to work together to make sure our data is safe. And we can do this if we pool our resources. And that's me finished. So I hope you found that challenging and enjoyable this morning. So I will leave the presentation now and start taking questions.
Cool. Thanks, Ron, for the presentation. I think it was super useful. I have
So I can't see any questions coming up yet.
Yeah, I have many questions. There are not many questions on the chat, but let's
Francisco,
see if we can
welcome back.
ask something. Yeah, welcome. You mentioned that about the ransomware, all the attacks and all that. This is something that we cannot.
Francisco, have you seen any chat? Oh, sorry, we can't hear you.
You can hear me? No? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Because I see no sound on my end. Can you hear me, Ron? Hello? No, you cannot hear me. That's weird. Let's see how we can solve this. Okay, in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to ask on the chat. Let me see if we can solve this issue with Ron. Okay, well, since we have this situation.
Okay, so I understand there's no questions in the chat. So thank you, Francisco, for monitoring the chat. I believe there is a closing message from the sponsors for the event. So I will I put myself on mute and hand the reins back over to Francisco. Thank you for having us.
Perfect.
And have a wonderful day across the whole of Europe, and enjoy your conference, whether that be virtually or physically on site over the next few days. Thank you again. Hope to maybe come out and see you in person next year.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks. Actually, pretty nice to have him speaking well. He doesn't hear me, so it's a nice thing. Anyways, yeah, I can hear myself on the stream, so that's something that we have an issue with Ron. So apologies for the technical situation right now. stay with us. We'll be returning back at sorry, I'm saying the time of the conference. The time of the conference is 11:55, which is 3 hours plus 3 UTC. So if you are in CST, meaning that you are in the something between Poland? No, Poland is GM3. Between Germany and Spain, it's 10:55. So stay with us. We will be returned shortly for the next session with Alper Ebikoglu. I'm probably going to pronounce it so bad today, the surnames. I'm not so good on that. So thanks, everyone, and see you in a few moments.